Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk specifically about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition as a superpower for all who play and Dungeon Master. Okay, so I think that this is so crazy. I think the vast majority of D&D commentators don't know what Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition actually is, right? Let alone the public. They just don't understand what it is. And as I continue to think about it, I've been thinking about it a lot this week, and I really think it is a superpower that we have. All Dungeons & Dragons players and Dungeon Masters have a superpower, and I'm going to try to explain this to you. So what I want you to think about is life is the slingshot, and you are the stone, okay? So basically, life is the slingshot, and it's going to sling you forward as a stone. We get to choose in what direction it slings us, right? So life is a slingshot. It's going to pull back and it's going to propel us forward. We get to spin it around and choose what we get stuck into, right? When we strike, when the stone strikes where it's been aimed at, it will get stuck. It will be there, right? Those two things, whatever is hit by the stone and the stone, they will generally be stuck together, okay? So what happens is the vast majority of most people don't play Dungeons and Dragons, right? They spin around and they're like, there's a tree. I'm gonna have the slingshot embed me in a tree, okay? And generally trees are like video game. A tree is a good example of the tree is a video game. When the slingshot slings you forward as a stone, right? And you have aimed yourself at a tree, at the video game industry. You're going to spend your time playing video games, right? You are going to have an inelastic collision. You're going to strike, right, the tree. You're going to get stuck in the tree. You're not going to move, and the tree's not going to move. It's an inelastic collision, okay? Now, Dungeons & Dragons player, okay? The life is the slingshot. It pulls the stone back, okay? And they say, hey, I see Dungeons & Dragons there. It is a suspended piece of wood. It is a piece of wood suspended on a rope. I want to go there. Release me now, right? And, a Dungeons & Dragons player has chosen to strike into Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, okay? So the life pulls back. They choose where they're going to get shot at, right? We do. We choose where we're going to end up, right? And so we choose Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, right? When we strike as the stone, when the stone strikes the suspended piece of wood, the piece of wood suspended by a rope, which is Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, there is an elastic collision, right? What happens is rather than all the kinetic energy being lost to heat and sound, which is exactly what happens when the stone hits the tree, right? When a person strikes Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition and gets embedded in it, right? What happens is the kinetic energy isn't lost, okay? The stone continues to move as the piece of wood moves. The energy of the stone hits the suspended piece of wood. The piece of wood arcs on its rope and continues to move, and it swings. And there's lots of motion and dynamic energy. And there's motion for the stone, and there's motion for the wood, right? We make Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition better, right? WotC asks us to do that with a million different surveys, and we do it when we choose to buy a book or when we choose not to buy a book, right? But there's motion in Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and there's motion in the person. How is there motion in the person, right? Can you imagine living as one person? What if I was just J. Scott Garibay, and I was never Kindwin, the half-orc cleric? What if I was never that dragonborn bard? What if I had never been, right, an ASMR rogue? What if I had never played as that turtle monk? What kind of sad, shriveled human would I be if I just lived in one person's mind, heart, emotions, and knowledge? It's pathetic, and these people lack the superpower we have. We know, because we've played these characters, we know what it's like to be a mother whose child is in danger. We know what it's like to be someone returning to their village with wealth. We know what it's like to weep over the loss of a friend, right? To weep over the loss of every friend, right? Everybody in the party got killed but you, right? we have this superpower. We live in multiple people, right? And because we want to understand the structures, we learn more about government, we learn more about hierarchy, we learn more about social, we learn more about weapons, we learn more about exploration, right? We're not limited the way non-Dungeons and Dragons players are limited. And we have a superpower of empathy and knowledge and wisdom that comes from the game that everyone else is just a shadow compared to us, right? Our kinetic energy has not been lost, right? We are still moving, and what we have embedded ourselves in moves. When you choose to be embedded in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, your kinetic energy won't be lost. When the people who choose to like go into video games, their kinetic energy is lost in heat and sound, and nobody misses it, right? We have a superpower and we can't forget it. It's so critical that we understand exactly what Dungeons and Dragons is and that we never forget. It's critical. I really encourage you, don't take Dungeons and Dragons for granted. It's your superpower. That's my opinion. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts and please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.